What is up, everybody? It's a crazy freaking week again. I bet you're exhausted. I bet you're sick of deciding whether or not you're going crazy or whether the world's going crazy. Well, we got the answer for you. They're going nuts. You're pretty normal. And if you're a conservative in the last 3, 4, 5 years, you're more than normal. You're probably pissed and kind of wondering if everything your parents ever told you was misogynist and white supremacist. And you'd be wrong. Everything's normal. They're just, psychologically creating this massive operation to make everybody go crazy. But every once in a while, a little streak of sunshine comes through and breaks up the clouds. And you go, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not nuts. We hope that this show does that for you. But when it doesn't, we bring in somebody that's got what I call the breaker anointing to tell the truth regardless of the situation. And that dude today is Tommy freaking Vext. Welcome, Tommy.
What's going on? Got my headset in. How good?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good, man. I don't know if you're on Wi-Fi or data, but whatever one works better, go to that one. I'm always cool with it, dude. But welcome to the RossduhBoss show, man. We got Tina the Cuban in the house. Hello. As well. She's the way better looking version of me over there. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Tina, for being so pretty. I appreciate it. Everybody on my show always says, who's the pretty girl that you do this with? And then I ask Tina and she's like, they think I'm pretty? And I go, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a huge ego boost. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, I guess. Well, so Tommy.
And the spice.
Yeah, she's got the spice. And dude, her white beans, I'm not gonna lie, or her black beans and white rice, man, that she made it for my whole family the other day. Boy, howdy. I make you end up in the ER, but that didn't have to do with you. That had to do with me. I had too much rice. I was too toxic, which is why we had Ashley Everly on last week. I don't know if you follow Ashley Everly, Tommy. She's a toxicologist that basically tells you all the crap that kills you. And news, in case you didn't know, it's pretty much everything. So if you fart in the wrong direction and accidentally inhale it, you die early, I guess. Just the way it works.
Oh, okay. Sweet. I'll try not to fart in my
Yeah. It's like my wife is really ladylike, so I appreciate that she never does anything like that around me. And it's really funny because I'm always like, did you fart? She's like, no, I didn't. It's like super defensive.
Your face, like
no, I didn't. It was one of the kids. I'm like, okay, I think it was you. And she's like, no, it wasn't me.
That is so funny.
Well, Tommy,
you need to tap. You need to phone and then just hit the button, and it's like, babe, was it? Tell her though, don't tell her that you're doing it, and just do it once in a while.
In front of other people,
I was going to say in the grocery store,
and
then
store.
say Erica.
God, honey, God,
in the mall, escalator or in an elevator. That's the worst. Escalator is not bad until you fart. The escalator takes up a crop dusting.
Right.
If you fart in an elevator, like first of all, if you fart in a Hitler, like what's the matter with you? Like you're enjoying this, like you're like you like your own brand and misery with everyone else. Just to make them miserable. It's sadistic.
My favorite elevator fart from a movie or show is when Jim Carrey was in Liar Liar, and then he turns around, just the face he makes when he's like, it was me.
That was back before Jim Carrey had some kind of CIA psychological break that happened, and he turned into just a puppet for the woke mob, dude. I don't know what happened with old Jim Carrey.
Oh man,
they've got homeboy painting in his attic or something right now. He's just paint.
Was it his girlfriend? Oh
no, his girlfriend is super woke.
I think they knocked her off. I don't know. I don't know. I don't believe anything. I don't believe that.
Why? You're not a conspiracy theorist, dude. We know very well that the CIA conducts honeypot operations to compromise people so that they can use them for what they want in other countries to topple regimes. We are fools.
Why do you think so many people in Hollywood have, this? I lived in LA for 17 years. I'm a multi-platinum selling artist. Before that, I was a drug and alcohol counselor with Justin Bieber. I helped him get sober. I've been around. And they do it and say something, they will find a way to make you. That's just how it goes.
So when
people were mad at The Rock because in 2020 he brought Kamala Harris and Joe Biden on his, because he's like, oh, I want to vote. He's protecting his assets. They leveraged him. He did. That's what the whole the Me Too movement, the real reason the Me Too movement is becomes a form of blackmail. Right. Most people don't know that the FBI set up Martin Luther King was polyamorous and he had a wife and a girlfriend his whole life, and they knew he had a discreet relationship with his girlfriend, and the FBI would find out what and book the room next door and would record him having intimate affairs, compiled a list of tapes, sent it to him, and gave him 5 weeks to commit suicide. It exposed him to the church and to his followers.
What? Yeah, I saw that letter.
Yeah.
I saw that letter. I saw that letter recently. Actually, that was the first time I saw it. And isn't it interesting that comes out around the same time that we hear about JFK?
Yes.
And now we're watching the FBI basically. Like, I mean, if you're in America and you're paying attention, it is very clear what's happening. It has been weaponized. They're attempting to conduct, they want to control everybody, and you're the last piece of resistance. And unfortunately, information travels quickly and they can't stop it.
Well, they do it overseas. They do it overseas in like in the Middle East and things like that, cause uprisings against leaders. Our FBI, but now they're doing it here, I believe.
Well, that's like the CIA.
Oh, good.
That was what they do in other countries.
Yeah, when they want to destabilize a foreign regime, they'll start a grassroots uprising, which they're paying people who are poor. Same thing in the BLM riots were financed, obviously.
Yes. And they use it was to buy the weapons.
Yeah, but I mean, in here, like when you look at Act Blue, the money that was whatever $1 million that was generated to BLM, most of it either went to Joe Biden paying all these people that they hired to cause mass destruction, and then they use Soros-appointed institutions, and people are like, "Oh, that's crazy." I'm like, if you don't talk to people who aren't aware of what's going on at this point, it's been 3 years. March, it's going to have been 3 years since the COVID nonsense started, and it's almost like trying to that Santa Claus isn't real.
Right. No, that's exactly what it's like. Yeah.
Right. Well, it is. And at the end of the day, you've got, so here's basically essentially what's happening right now is you've got the CIA and you've got, the CIA has been operating overseas to basically overthrow other governments for as long as they've existed, essentially. And what they do is they basically conduct a honeypot operation where they bring a 16-year-old girl that looks 22 into a room. They get you super schnockered. They get a videotape. They have her come on to you. And then all of a sudden you're kissing. And then all of a sudden they have a video of it. And then the next day when it's time to vote on the thing, they send you an email that says, hey, you want this to go public? If you don't want it to go public and you want to save face and whatever, then vote the way we tell you. And also we're going to send you $332,000 at the end of the month to make this so that you're not bitter about it, type of thing. Or they just won't send any money and they'll just do whatever. Well, so that's how they controlled other places and they topple entire regimes. We are fools if we don't think that they are attempting to do the same thing with celebrities here and politicians here. And the way that you can see it too, Tommy, you probably noticed this. You'll see a normal person who's a celebrity's Twitter be normal, and then all of a sudden it'll bust out this already pre-formatted pro-Democrat, pro-talking point, pro-New World Order, pro-World Health Organization tweet. And you're like, so you're just on the conveyor belt.
Yeah,
that's all it is, huh, Taylor Swift? You're just on the conveyor belt.
I was just about to say Taylor Swift seemed like it just was like this weird switch.
Yes.
And I was like, what happened?
Yeah. Well, so Tommy.
Well, they leverage people in a lot of different ways, right? So it's like really, it's people don't understand. I think one of them, like just what we're talking about with the CIA toppling regimes. The first thing, what governments do they overthrow and why? Every single dictator that we've heard of we're so satanic dictator, so we got to be boogeyman, weapons of mass destruction. It's of nations that don't subscribe to the Fed. If they have their currency and their own sovereign bank and they don't abide by the Federal Reserve and the central bank, who is the shadow government of America, and they create an issue to go over there then they destabilize the government and then control the government and then input their own banking infrastructure. So whatever monetary resources that country is. We saw what happened in Libya where Gaddafi was thrown out. And it's like people are like, oh, he's a war criminal. Well, Libya is the Wild West. They have slavery again. You can buy an African man for 100 years illegal. That was not allowed when he was the president. And same thing with Saddam Hussein. They never found weapons of mass destruction. He wanted his own sovereign bank, and they wanted to be away from the West, and then euros and not just dollars. And once you go that route, that's when they get rid of you. So if you, as much as everyone's like, oh, Putin's this, I look at the facts, right? I'm like, I don't think any of these world leaders are good people. I think they do what they have to do. It's just a personality disorder to say I'm going to be the president or the leader of a country. So personality types that normally that we don't really get down on that level. Ukraine, I don't know. I do know that I knew there was 11 laboratories that were doing gain of function funded by us. And then when he invaded, it turned out there was 27. COVID shit, in the consideration that the Wuhan lab actually had a weapon to help them keep their monetary system higher than everyone else's, and all the nuclear bomb without any of the fallout or repercussion. So why would they be comfortable with having those kind of laboratories on their border, number one? Number two, Ukraine has no government. They're like, oh, Ukraine's a free nation. No, it's not. George Soros rigged the Ukraine elections in 2004. They've been rigging them. Everyone who's like, I support Ukraine. If you don't know what the color revolution is, or the orange revolution, the same as the BLM Antifa riots, where they financed thugs and destroy the city when they had a legal, fair election after they broke away from the four, and the people voted who they wanted to, but the banking infrastructure they wanted to. In America, the American government didn't get the leader that they wanted to. They went in and they just did a coup, and they created a social injustice, and they just swapped out the leaders and said that Russian collusion, the original was the Ukraine 2004 election. So because I'm educated to this stuff, when 2020 went down, I watched the same exact play. These people don't have original ideas. And if you ask any billionaire, like, I know a couple words, do it, repeat. That's all they're doing. So once you figure out what they're doing and why they're doing it, you can understand why, right? Like the reason why they want to destroy America, there's multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is that our nation has military in the world.
Yep. Yeah, and
we have more numbers of people with firearms than any. Like, no one could beat us in an invasive war. Not with guns and bombs and tanks.
And the American people as a whole, the people you're talking about, the largest standing army in the world with that's more well equipped and everything. They also, most of the people that own guns in the United States have a semblance of the same type of moral fiber, meaning that they believe that people should be left alone, generally speaking. They believe that government shouldn't interfere in things, and they believe the government can be dangerous. Most people and that is a dangerous thing. That is a very large thorn in the ground. If you are the globalist that want to walk freely and do what you please, there's one big ass lion that can still get you, and it's those guys. So if it was me, I would be spending a lot of my time trying to destabilize the West and destabilize that country too. And that's what they're freaking doing. Look, there's if you're wondering how can you see this as evident and how can you see this? Well, very clearly, rewind 10 years and tell me which one of these had any of the moral arguments that they have today. Walmart Walmart, McDonald's, Amazon, Google, YouTube, all the social media channels, the MLB, the NFL, the NBA, all of them together, along with every single celebrity that's well known, all of a sudden in 2018, 2019, start having the exact same political opinions about everything. There's just no way that that happens in a vacuum. That doesn't happen. You can't all of a sudden think all white people are evil from 90 different locations unless it's birthed somewhere to cause something.
But the funny thing is that like this is the most funny thing about my white supremacy fucking, you know, the fake white supremacy thing is that there's not that many white people. I think white people account for 10%. It's like 7%. It just happens that in America and in Europe, there are white people are from Europe because there's not a lot of sun, have to have as much melanin in their skin to protect their bodies from. That's literally the only reason we have different colors. It's just
right.
It literally is out of humans in different environments that make us different. We all share the same DNA. It shouldn't even be a conversation at this point.
You're
like
actually, you're actually right about that too. They found that with the, I believe it's some section of Mongolians. They had a certain lid because they're on the snow. They're tribal people on the snow and in the sun all day, and that reflects. They have like some sort of extra lid or how it hangs, and they found that because, you know, it was good for blocking like the sun and the way, you know, something like that, like a wintry. You know how you have to wear like ski goggles? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we all have just based on, because look, like the modern humanity living in houses and having electricity like this for a couple hundred years, like, you know, a couple hundred years, you know, people had ancient civilizations per se, but before that, the whole of human walking around, like human beings were just rolling around, you know what I mean? Before we became civilized, and we were built to walk. That's why human beings stand up. It's like the different parts of the planet, you could take human beings out of the equation. How many different kinds? There's a house cat, there's a lion, there's a bobcat, there's tigers, but they're all cats. You know what I mean? True. And they actually have different DNA than each other. All humans, we actually have the same DNA. We're less separate than those genomes. You know, this ideology of racism is flawed in the basic principle. There's only one race. Now there are, like, you could call it continent you came from, you know, or what, you know, that's the only thing that you can really say. Black and white are not separate races.
Right.
You know, in Latin America, they don't do shit.
That's true.
Right.
That's
yeah. And
true.
I mean, to be frank, like if you remember, hell, even the 90s and the early 2000s in the United States, I don't remember people being like overtly racist, like as far as like I went to the rec every day, played basketball. It was 90% black dudes. I was the only white dude there. Maybe there was one other. And, you know, like, I mean, they joked me all the time and I thought it was funny. No, like half my humor comes from hearing black people say really funny crap, you know what I mean? Because they were so good at it.
Right.
You know,
racism, I mean, racism is just rooted in ignorance. A lot of people who are white supremacists, this too. When you, like, I've been traveling and playing rock music to white people for 20 years, and I've never had a problem with anybody, right? I'm from New York, and I lived in LA. I grew up 20 for 17 years, and now I just moved to Vegas. And like, you know, is there race supremacists? Yeah, but you're talking about a bunch of people who basically they're illiterate or uneducated, and they're angry at the prospect that someone, and they need something to blame. So they use race. But the black community does this. people, well, liberals are like, oh, well, black people can't be racist. Yeah, they can. For two years, everyone was like, oh, black people can't be racist. Minorities can't be racist until the Jews. And then everyone was like,
That's
he's anti-Semitic. I was like, oh,
that's
okay,
such
so
a
now,
great point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Point.
So
that's a good point, because
right.
that was the message for forever is black people don't have the capacity to be racist because they don't have the power.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Kanye starts talking shit about Jews and they go,
That's such a good point.
But they wouldn't call Kanye black because he's somewhat conservative mentally. So they would say he's not actually black.
But that's racist too, right?
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Like I called out, talking about this earlier, I called out BLM. I did a marker video that went viral, and I exposed the fact party under the Corporation Act Blue and George Soros were the financial donations to the BLM company, which was not even a non-profit organization, right? And I knew someone who's the co-founder of the real BLM. He was kicked out. They kicked the real people, and they bought the name and they trademarked it and turned it into a corporation, and then $1 million from all these big corporations to fight racism, but gave none of them across the country, gave none of the money to the victims. George Floyd's own apartment, Owens paid the back rent on George Floyd's apartment.
Really?
For 2 years of back pay. So
I didn't know that. I know that the father of Michael Brown had come out quite recently, within the last couple years, I want to say, not like months, but years, and kind of echoed the same sentiment that I haven't received a dime from BLM, and even our community itself hasn't received a dime.
Yeah, well, they also have,
because
what was it?
Does not care about black people. They don't. Look, here's another perfect example. On the 4th of July weekend of 2020, 7 black babies were murdered. Crossfire of gang shootings in Chicago, and Terry Crews went on CNN and dumped on CNN because the black celebrities were like, "Where's BLM? Our babies are getting shot about illegal guns and illegal gun violence." And they're like, "Oh, that's only when the police do it." Talking about. So George Floyd, who was a career criminal, and should he have got but he's not a good guy. He did 5 years in up a pregnant woman with a gun. He had five charges for crack cocaine. When he was caught by the police and stopped, he had fake fraud, trying to use fake $20 bills. That's a felony. He was on methamphetamine. He had COVID positive allegedly, and he ate a bunch of fentanyl. And at the autopsy report, he didn't die of asphyxiation. He actually overdosed. Derek Chauvin shouldn't be a cop, and he's complicit because they didn't fucking give him CPR and they didn't help him survive. But the guy overdosed. Right. And I've been sober 13 years. I've been a drug and alcohol counselor. I've had patients die in my own, and that's what it looks like. So there's two, they released the body cam footage because they wanted to have the riots because this was a massive fundraiser. And how are you going to make $90 million? Oh, we'll all they had to do was wait.
Right. For the evidence, let's see what happened for real. No, I agree 100% with any situation.
Yeah, well, you remember how long they waited to put out that video that basically deflated the entire, the knee-jerk reaction that everybody had when they saw Derek Chauvin's knee on his quote-unquote shoulder/neck, whatever. But when they saw that, it was like, oh, that's it. This was murder. But then they wait 6 months, 8 months before they release the full video of the body cam. And the guy is literally saying, I cannot breathe. Can I lay on the ground? I don't want to. Don't
take me out of the truck.
Put me on the ground, lay me on the ground. I can't breathe before anything happens. And then, it was the same thing as Michael Brown.
Placed on the floor. Yeah.
Yes.
There are certain situations like Eric Garner was murdered. Choked Eric Garner to death. Was a small man and he was terrified. And he shouldn't have, because he was not psychologically psychologically capable of being in a situation. Before I was sober, I mean, I did bodyguard work. I've had to take people out, and there's somebody because you'll fucking kill them. And if you have any sort of training, you know that, right?
Right.
Was murdered in front of his girlfriend and her daughter by a small Asian guy who was probably racist and afraid. He was. You shouldn't. If you.
That cop was
officer,
afraid. Yeah.
If you're afraid of people, because you're gonna. If you have a gun and you're afraid, lethal weapon against someone before you even know what's going on.
Right.
Yeah,
so
true.
And the solution to police brutality is to have a higher pay grade and higher to be a police officer. They should get paid more, and you should have to go to school. You got to be a nurse.
Exactly.
You should be an expert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
should be an expert.
Marksman. You should do
jujitsu. Yeah, exactly. I mean the whole nine.
Or know the actual law. Like some of them don't even know the law. Where like there's like they go to public buildings. Have you seen those auditors online?
The First Amendment auditors.
First Amendment, and they're allowed to be there. And these cops,
like, hey, we're gonna need you to leave. You know, and they start enforcing opinions and feelings and policies versus actual law enforcement.
Yeah, they don't know their own town's laws.
But you have to understand. Why you know what I mean? Why systematically is this allowed? People, but then they don't know what redlining is. They don't know that Nixon and the banking and mining, and they redlined all the African American neighborhoods in America in urban settings, address in this area. You're forbidden from getting a bank loan to open a business or get a home. That's
really? Nixon?
Systematic racism.
What'd you say? Nixon did this?
Nixon was a notorious, and Obama could have undone that. The only president who's actually done, because the opportunity zones that he created during his administration community and get them benefits and get them the opposite, the opportunity zones.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody talks about that.
Right. Hey, Tommy, are you on Wi-Fi or are you on cellular or Wi-Fi?
I'm on Wi-Fi. My cellular definitely won't cut it.
Okay.
Am I breaking up?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, starting to.
Yeah, starting to, or at least like a lot.
Let me look.
But yeah, well, you know that and LBJ, you know, was there was a lot of racist stuff that LBJ did when he basically incentivized single motherhood, you know, and basically had the government become become daddy. You know, it's like, do you want to be married or do you want your husband to, or you want the father of the kid not to be in the house and the government pay you a consistent income?
Right.
Well, what answer would you choose? If you're a woman who's been told that it's good to be independent, you know, and the men are trash, and then all of a sudden you get a chance to get paid by the government instead of the men, of course you would. And now look where we are. Single motherhood rate. Didn't
Lyndon B. Johnson literally say, I will have those N-words voting for Democrat for the next 100 years? I believe
it's alleged. It's alleged. Okay. That quote is alleged.
Allegedly.
Okay.
But I mean, come on. I've heard Joe Biden. People don't realize, man. Joe Biden had the damn Grand Cyclops of the KKK. That's his name.
Oh, yeah.
The Grand Cyclops. Yeah. That's Robert Byrd. BYRD. He spoke at his funeral and everything. Homeboy had like the Grand Cyclops, I think was his actual title in the KKK. What's hilarious? Fact checkers is when I post about that shit. They literally said in the fact check, they were like, false. Joe Biden did not have a grand wizard. And then 3 paragraphs later, it was like, homeboy was a grand cyclops.
He's a cyclops.
And it's like, you sons of bitches. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, I hate the fact checkers so much now, dude. It's so annoying.
The thing is that Robert Byrd was also Hillary Clinton's mentor at his funeral.
Was he?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Why am I learning this just now?
Yeah. Because people don't understand. Look, the eugenicists they're not white supremacists, right? They're Zionists, and then the Luciferian Church of like Hollywood has a Luciferian church. Like, it's a thing you can join. Like, the Scientologists are run by L. Ron Hubbard, and Aleister Crowley, there was Aleister Stanton LaVey. I can't remember. Anton LaVey. Stanton was his grandson. Church of Satan, the founder of the Church of Satan, and L. Ron Hubbard is the Dianetic theology. It all,
Oh my
all leads
God.
down to the same road. It's a religion of narcissism, separatism, that each individual person is their own God, and it's fucking craziness.
Yeah, when
They
you
live-
look up
they-
Keith Raniere,
this is their
the dude who had the Nixum cult, Keith Raniere, the dude, he got caught branding women, the people from Smallville. Wow,
yes.
yeah, the girl Chloe, whatever, from Smallville, Allison
notice how
Mackey or whatever.
I didn't even hear that in the news.
Right. So Nixum was a whole big thing. This was Keith Raniere. He was a billionaire. When you look up his patents that he had, one of his patents, Tommy, was how to rehabilitate a Luciferian. He had a full patent. You can look up right now on US patents or whatever. I looked it up and laughed at it because it had so much. It was literally talking about how to brainwash people with input and outputs. And he had an entire class that basically taught this thing. And Gerald Butler, Jennifer Aniston, all these different people had taken that seminar for basically how to do this. And a lot of them didn't follow through on whatever they learned in those particular settings, but they were branding their names into women's, not directly on their genitals, but near it, and this was talking about Luciferianism. You know what I mean? So did you find the patent?
I found a determination of whether Luciferian
Can be
rehabilitated.
rehabilitated. Yeah, that's his patent. That's his US patent. Billionaires. And the thing about this is too, man, is people think that these jokers don't have, like, you don't think they can clone people yet? You're crazy.
Yeah. No,
You're
I
crazy.
agree.
They've already cloned sheep. You don't think they clone people, bro? It was day 2. Fauci was snuffing beagles out as often as he could in the last 3 years. You don't think they were like, let's make a damn clone when nobody was looking? Like, of course they were, bro.
Do you think Joe
they probably.
Biden? Oh, go ahead.
That's it's speculative, but it's these things as other things that I've been privy to, like the fact that people don't understand that there are fucking big tech creating robotic armies, and that sounds crazy, but they show them to the little walking dogs.
Yes.
And they show you them walk. Now you see the walking dog holding it, automatically. And in San Francisco last month, they just wrote law enforcement in under dire circumstances are allowed to use an AI lethal force if it will save an officer's life.
They passed that?
This is all
I didn't know that it passed. RoboCop coming to a city near you guys.
So they say the AI.
This is why they're psychologically implanting in the youth that police officers are racist and bad, because if you have a non-human enforcement, militarized enforcement, you can't reason with it.
Right.
It only takes orders from its master, and it will never turn on it. And so these are science fiction that are Orwellian, that are people don't even like. I'm always years by what's coming out, so I say stuff and people are like, that's crazy. I'm like, just hang on, just wait.
Just hang on. Yeah, look at ChatGBT or whatever just came out the other day. A guy was asking it questions about the nature of the world and politics and stuff like that. And it was like, I don't have a political opinion because I'm a robot.
What?
That's what it said. He's like, I don't have political opinions. I'm a robot. And then he goes, okay, well, so then if you weren't a robot and you were a human, how should the world be orchestrated? And in ChatGPT's code, he goes, I would be a socialist because it provides the most fair opportunity for everybody. Hilarious. They've already got it. They've already got it in touch. And which is why Elon Musk, which I don't know if he's good or bad in the end of this thing, we'll see how Elon Musk plays out, but he's always talking about Neuralink as a response to being able to combat evil AI.
Yes.
You're going to need a piece of your brain to be robotic too, so you can kick their ass with them. So he's like, you have to be able to think as quickly as they do, or else you're going to get overtaken by, I mean, pretty much we're talking about fucking Terminator.
I was just going to say, we're living in the movie Terminator.
We're 3 days away from them being like,
get down, peasant. You're just a human.
Oh my gosh. And Tommy, you said something that I didn't even think about. See, I thought with the police thing, I was thinking they wanted to federalize police, which would make sense too, because
more control from a central,
control.
less variables to have to account for as the whatever. And that's
we'd
fine.
have like a king. We'd had like a monarch. We would go back to what we started here in the first place. But I didn't even think about what he said about making it acceptable. You don't want any humans to be at law enforcement,
right? Because they can have what they call hidden bias. Right. Whereas a robot can't unless the creator of the robot put it in there, which we know that they did because ChatGPT is going to pretty much take over things. Well, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Tommy.
But here's the thing. Robots,
go ahead.
You know, think about it. You can't do a Tiananmen Square in America because like we said earlier, there's more fire than any other military in the world. But a bunch of AI robots can do that easily. Really do that. Right.
That's actually true. Yeah. They
yeah. And then they electric cars and electric vehicles. When literally the mining process, cobalt and lithium is more devastating to the environment than drilling 1,000 drills.
Did you see what they put in the omnibus bill for the EV cars? It's just a tack onto that. They put that by 2028 or 2030, they want every new car with
the kill switch
in it. Like the manufacturers have to. It's in the bill.
I've seen iRobot. So I know how this ends.
When they want to have a climate change lockdown, they'll just, and if you come out of your house, the robots will kill you.
Look what they're doing with the gas stoves thing.
That's weird. I don't know. Yeah, some of this stuff I think is just like they're just being ridiculous because it throws you off. You're like, what the fuck? And then the problem is you have to be anything that comes out, I'm like, okay, this is a distraction, detrimental, but it always comes out at a time where to obfuscate the truth of something that's actually very. So I'm not really sure what that was a distraction of, but they put things out to cause freak people out. Like there's a major issue talked about the Mount Walsh documentary, and like, there's multiple layers of trans rights, and where I stand with that is that if you're a person and you have or whatever the clinical term is, and you have to do what you have to do for you. I understand. Now, I don't. At the same time, I have a few never use a bathroom with children because they have enough. They know that more important to protect than their feelings, and that it's not even an issue for them. So, who might have gender dysmorphia, but they're more or less morally sane. I'm like, well, who's demanding that that's my question. Who go and use the opposite bathroom with children in a YMCA, and all of my family who's conservative, who is LGBTQ, all say it's pedophiles. So what's happening is child abusers and pedophilias.
So you get this is confirmed with your circle. This is like a confirmed thing with your circle because a lot of people. Like, again,
this is my feedback that I get from.
Well, you're not the only person that gets that feedback. The entire Gays for Groomer movement, the Gays Against Groomers movement, they've basically said that they don't care about bathrooms. They're like, we don't want bathrooms to be like this because we want to keep it whatever. And there's this other group of people who are not about that life who are like, no, we need to do this thing. And then, I mean, hell, just the more and more. And the thing about it is as soon as you call out somebody that's doing pedophile stuff, the knee-jerk reaction is they start attacking the church. And do you go after the church this hard? And it's like, oh, you want to play that game? Cool. How about we make a new rule? If you ever touched a kid, we hang you by your dick. How about that?
Well, here's the thing.
How about we hang every single person that ever touches a kid? Can we agree on that? Oh, no, you won't agree to that? Why not all of a sudden?
But this is the other thing that people need to understand. Like, there's a movie that's about and the Boston Times exposed a massive pedophile archdiocese of the Catholic Church, and those priests were disbarred and just. So what? I don't know. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah, they keep
What was the
bringing
issue?
up like,
Yeah,
right?
there
They
was an
keep bringing
issue.
it up.
They got exposed. It was going on for a long time. 100 people out of the fucking tens of thousands or 20,000 or 30,000, however many were dealt with. The church dealt with them accordingly.
I agree.
Yeah, so the standard is still there,
Not to
and
say
that's
that I don't think that the Vatican's got weird shit going on. However,
Yes.
it's like the different. When the church was brought, these people were brought to the justice of the church. The church had to do what they keep the congregation safe, and for the most part, I don't really hear anything about anymore.
Right.
Yeah, well,
in the Catholic
our
archdiocese.
Well, our moral position hasn't changed either. As Christians, if you're touching children, yeah, that's sin. Just so we're clear, not only is it sin, but I'm going to beat you up in general, just because it seems like you should get your ass kicked a little bit. Just seems to help.
Yeah.
It seems to help.
Alleviate symptoms.
Yeah, like if you're touching kids, you're going to get your ass kicked. That just seems like a fair trade. And in Uganda, they just cut your arms off, which is fair too. But we're just going to kick your ass this time, and maybe kill you. I don't know. I don't make the rules. I just, I know what the father would do. I know if you touch one of my kids, what would happen.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I grew up in. I'm 40, and there was only one time in my childhood when I was in elementary school. We got brought into the auditorium on a Wednesday, and all of our parents got called to pick. It was a white van that had tried to pull a little girl into it, and then a couple days later, the van and the guy was murdered in it.
Ooh, that's justice.
Because that's
street justice.
But that's the fathers I grew up with. The men in my neighborhood, they kill people, they murder you, and the police would look the other way. They'd be like, yeah, whatever.
The mafia. Think about it. They took if the mafia was like in certain areas, I think there'd be better civil behavior too. Like, but they took down all the mafia.
Well, the rise of the mafia is the political system, right? So it's like you have all these mega, multi-billionaire and trillion-dollar corporations colluding and find to pass bills and do things that are in their best interest, and they're basically controlling our. And also, like you said earlier, if they don't comply, they will expose you, and they don't. Right? Like, for example, I went through a lawsuit with my label. I voted for Trump. I canceled.
Yeah, how did that start? Can you take us in the beginning? Can you take us in the beginning to what did they do to you where you're like, you need to get sued? Well, you had done your BLM video and then things kind of came from there?
I did that video and I continued to, I had relationships with who I never broke their anonymity, and I was told what was going on. And I have a friend who worked for the Pentagon, and I have two friends who work for the Bureau. And through, in my team to meet these people, and they would give me information on encrypted apps, and I trusted these people, and so I was saying things that were happening as they were going along. Like, I remember criticizing Justin Trudeau, and iHeartRadio in Canada called the label, said if he's going to pull him from the radio in Canada. And it was just all these weird things. Yeah,
iHeartRadio called your people,
but I can't verify this because the head of my label is a communist and could have been making this up. So lawyers, all this stuff, everyone, they wanted me to do a conservatorship almost. They didn't just sign away my constitutional right to freedom of speech. They had a contract that I had to ask permission, and I had to basically anything on social media to post, and that they would be my conservators and the arbiters of my. And I said, fuck you. And then literally the next day, I accused me of domestic violence.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah. I tried her, and I almost killed her, and she was scared for her life. And, this is a woman who, on court, beat all the charges. I went to civil court, and in civil court, she wanted money, wanted me to give her $100,000 to go away, and this was the height of Me Too, and I'm like, fuck you, and I'm like, I'm not, I don't care, and so we dragged it out, and ultimately the judge exonerated me and said there's absolutely no evidence, but I'm going to give this other person an online bully because I had evidence that she was engaging in prostitution. I want that exposed. So that's what happened. And that was it. And then the lawyers pay, they inflated their prices. And that was the whole scam to try. And I filed an appeal, and they have never got paid, and we're going into court again next, and I'm going to walk away from it.
So what about?
So they will have done all that for nothing.
Sorry. The fallout from what about fellow rockers and things like that? Because a lot of conservative people, like in the military, they listen to hard rock, and some of the bands that you've toured with and been in and sang with are what do they do? What do they say? Because a lot of people think they're conservative.
The band members who are truly pro-American and didn't drink the punch, they were afraid to say it. They didn't want to be called white supremacists, and that was such a terrifying, it's not a big deal anymore, terrifying accusation. And cancel culture where now as it's lost its power, the imposition of that was enough to scare people into not being willing. But I don't, I'm not that kind of person, right? They were dealing with somebody who I fucking gang violence, and my brother tried to murder me when I was
I was about to say, didn't your brother try to or did kill you? Were you dead? You were dead for a while, right?
And they had to resuscitate me.
Okay.
And basically, but my gang member, and I got sober and became a musician, and whatever. This is something record and a music video that it illustrates the whole story about how we were abandoned at birth, and we got adopted, and then he had severe mental. Were addicted to drugs when we were born. No one told us, so we started using it as teens. Was like that. Ultimately, I went to recovery and I got sober, and he kept going down. How
long do you have, by the way, for sobriety?
13 and a half years.
Yay!
That's awesome, dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really great that you've turned that around, and you said you were adopted, which I didn't know.
This is the thing I tell people, the miracle of my recovery is everything that I have. It wasn't until I surrendered my life and my will over to the care of God, as I understand, was able to have space and humility to have room for the gift for me. And so, people always oh, congratulations, but I don't think you deserve an award for running out of a burning building. I think that out of in my recovery with the other people I helped get sober, because it's like you don't really get to stay sober unless you're willing to run back in that building and pull other people out. I think that's what God's testimony and why I was, I had died, and I was told that I hadn't fulfilled my obligation back here and do more work.
Oh, and you had a experience? You had an experience, a out of body, or when, a lot of people say.
Yeah, I left my body. Yeah, crazy.
Oh my God.
Dude, I feel like we could talk for 5 hours.
I know.
Well, everybody, I want you to listen real quick. Go to the Lone Wolf Gang, go to Tommy Vext Instagram, and he's got all of his albums that are coming out and that are out already on his link tree. It's the first link that's there. Go download everything you can. Tommy, I'm going to download the whole smorgasbord tonight on Spotify. That's why I listen to Spotify. Hell yeah, dude. Look, There's one thing when you meet somebody who makes good music. There's another thing when you meet somebody who makes good music.
Actually, I was gonna say I've never liked the song "Bad Romance." I don't really like a lot of Lady Gaga stuff. The only Bad Romance version is the one that you've done. Is the cover.
It's that cover.
Yeah, it's his cover. Yeah, and with the like rock and everything mixed with it, it's like that's probably the best version of it, in my opinion.
So, Tommy, would you say that you're mostly hopeful about the future in America because you see so many people waking up to what's happening, or are you expecting that, no, it's going to get a lot worse and then maybe something might happen? What's your opinion about that?
And I went through the stages of being red pilled, and then I was black pilled, and now, right? And so, I'm in a very good place of acceptance, and that, I think as men, paired, but we don't need to dwell, right? Because, first of all, like my experience of dying and my experience of being, I have been in God's presence, and it's the amount of love that is inexplicable. You can't even, it's described. And so the fear of scarcity and the fear of dying, to that, the enemy has nothing against you. They can only the illusion of separateness. They can only project onto us the illusion of fear and difference, when literally every single living being is an expression of God. As long as babies are born and the earth and the wind still blows and grass still grows, and it's an infinite will that life is good and should continue to go on. What we're experiencing in the digital universe, which is a fake reality, and it is a matrix. Control the matrix, want to be God, and they want to control mankind, and they want each other on Twitter. They want us to feel low self-esteem on Instagram. All these should have been implicated for the betterment of humanity, and to bridge through continental divide and language barriers. Technology was supposed to happen is that there's darkness in the corners of a human heart, and some people, and the darkness takes them over.
Yeah.
And then they want to dominate their fellow, not interested in liberating, right? And it's our job to liberate our fellow man and woman. It's to live in the liberation of hatred and separation. And we're all like, I'm able to fall at the moment if I'm not in a spiritual practice, because they're the way that they attack all of our needs. They try to make it like, oh, we're not going to be able to eat. No one will ever love me. I'm going to die alone. I won't have enough money to feed my family. That is illusory, and this life is finite. But when you transfer over, when you die, or my experience was when I died in a nap, because our lives on this planet is so short compared to the infinite, timeless presence of our Creator, that, and like, again, it's like concepts and understand. There's literally nothing to be afraid of. There's no such thing as government. All there is the collective human consciousness, which is because God has given us free will. God puts, by giving man this, he puts a piece of himself inside of us. That's why paintings can be created and manifest buildings. There's only two worlds. There's the world of nature, that is God's will, and then there's the man-made world, which is this phone, the computer, this table, anything that starts as an idea in the human mind, which is business. Now the problem is that many people who have very powerful consciousness use it for evil.
Yep.
And that's why they're doing all these things. lot of these wealthy old billionaires, they're dying. And for some of them, they're not going to go where we go. And these are their vainly destroy God's world before they die. And they go into, they're going to go to I don't necessarily believe in hell as the Bible explains. Hell is like being cast out, your soul being cast out into infinite space to eternity, God's love for you. And that's a lot to be afraid of. We, the people, we don't worry about. The people who are trying to destroy and dominate us, they're going to a hell, an eternal place, so cold and so alone and so desperate and devoid of anything. All they can do is, with the last bit of their power, their fake monetary power on innocent lives. And it won't last. And these people will not live.
Tommy, is there, I want to do part 2 sometime with way better cell phone service and all that. So that way we can really hear every word that you're saying. Is there anything you want to tell the people before we go? Yes, we'll do it in person when you come, because you're coming to the Norva in some point this year.
No.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah, we'll be back. But if I could tell anybody anything, it's share yourselves and take care of each other. That's kind of like what I sign off every night when I get off stage. I need a reminder, and so just hang tight. It's like, don't let the bastards grind you down. I don't know.
Yeah, stay happy.
They're not winning, and I don't know. If you're afraid, like everything I lost, I needed to lose to understand how, and that's something they can never take away.
Absolutely, man. Well, guys, you heard it here, and from Tommy. Stay strong, stay happy. Don't let them grind you down. Stay faithful to your friends. Take care of one another. Stay healthy. That way they can't get you that way. And if you're looking for his albums, go to the Lone Wolf Gang, at the Lone Wolf Gang on Instagram. Click his link tree. Get the album. Tommy Vext, everybody. It's been great having you, Tommy. God bless everybody. And you guys have a good night.
Thanks, guys.